Hello, my friends, and welcome to the new episode of Nature's Honor. I'm your host, Nature Chad, and today I bring you a new one finally. I'm happy to be back, and I'm back with a big one. Today's guest is Zenoviel, Nick, and this was an incredible talk. Nick is a content creator in this sphere. He's been here for a while, and he's always been this person that kind of inspired me with his faith, with his determination about his faith, about how he's, like he was saying in the podcast, how he is always preaching about it. And this conversation will really shed the light on very important topics, the most important topics that I ever covered in this podcast. Listen to this with an open mind, with an open heart, because what we were talking about is something that is from our own experience, something that we had to learn. And there will be nothing better for me, that nothing would make me so happy than for you to listen to this with open heart. You can take it, you cannot, but give it a listen. Incredible conversation. I hope you enjoy it, and I hope I will make more podcasts soon. The next guest, fingers crossed, will be someone that you've already seen here, someone that is very known here in our sphere, and I'm sure you enjoy it. But anyways, guys, thank you for listening to this. Thank you for considering it, and I hope you enjoy. Hello, my friend. Welcome, Nick, to the Nature's Honor podcast. This is episode 22, and I'm very honored to have you here. It's been a while, honestly, like I just said to you in private, like we've known each other for almost more than 2 years, I believe now, and this is the first proper time that we can actually talk about some important things. So, how are you, man?
Yeah, very good. Thanks for having me on. I've been a long time admirer of your page. Always like the positive and encouraging vibes you bring to Instagram, where there are often a lot of black pills being shared around. But I always like your page because I always know you'll have some kind of positive outlook on anything. So it's good to be talking to you, and it has taken us a while to get to this one-on-one conversation, but I think providentially we'll find out that it was the right time to do so. So yeah, thanks for having me on.
Absolutely, absolutely, man. Yeah, I always appreciated that you when we talked before, when I was said something in the group chat, you were always like, you were always positive, and that means a lot. That's what I try to do. But anyways, man. So first of all, I would like to ask you a bit about yourself, and to begin with, I just wondered, like, how did you even get into this sphere, or before that, like, talk me a bit about your, like, I guess kind of what you're trying to bring to the sphere with your page and everything.
Sure. So I guess I kind of found my way on a similar way through uh, similar method to how most people do. Kind of uh, young guy, you know, I don't know how old I was exactly when I started it, but like early 20s, maybe about 20, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Into self-improvement, these kinds of things. Like a lot of people, finish school and get out in the world, and lots of people are
Yeah.
miserable, lots of things don't make sense. Uh, and you're kind of left a bit confused. And then you get a few red pills on things like health and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
You take the self-improvement pill, and you're like, oh, life is kind of is what you make of it. And then I'm a very curious, inquisitive person, so I'm always looking for more answers for things. And yeah, and that drove me on to being quite a, I suppose, if I may be so bold, a well-researched person. And I just wanted to share about the stuff I was learning. And then a few guys I think in the sphere we'd kind of met by chance in different groups. And you know how it kind of just like we're so lucky the way it just all organically took off.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I was a bit late to the party. Like I think I had a bit of imposter syndrome where I wasn't sure, oh, should I be posting? What if I'm wrong about things? But then I realized like, no, just jump in. And it was fun. We had a great, the first year or so of the sphere was really fun. It was
Oh
we
yeah.
we were probably sharing a lot of stuff that like if we look back on now, we might cringe a bit or think was a bit stupid, but it was fun. The energy was there. People were loving it. And it was infectious. Like it became something I kind of wanted to do. and then it just became a passion project, and it just became something I just loved doing. I loved meeting new guys, following new pages, getting new ideas. And then yeah, a few new people came along the way, like Andrew, the Saxon Cross, and other guys like that. Um,
Hmm.
and kind of took you know how the old energy of the sphere kind of died off a bit, and now it seems to be picking up again, going
Yeah.
in a different sort of direction. I think a better direction, one that needed to happen. But yeah, that's my story. Like I think I really probably fit the bill like most guys, you know, just very curious about the world, not really content with how people were telling me to live, what to do. I'm kind of wondering like there's got to be more to this than just
Hmm.
the basics that people tell you. Like so many people are sick, so many people are miserable. There's got to be some other way of doing this. And so yeah, I think we were
Absolutely. Yeah.
all on that journey together all at once.
Yep. Yep. That's a great thing because when people realize that we are kind of all similar guys, you know, like not just the creators but the people listening as well. We all have kind of the similar story. But what I was wondering about is when did the Christianity came in? Was it something that you were like raised in, or something that you later on started to realize and practice?
Yeah, so I wasn't really raised in the faith. I mean, I knew a little bit about the faith, but yeah, it wasn't a big part of my upbringing.
Hmm.
Australia is quite a secular country. It's not like Croatia where there's, you know, Christian churches and symbols and all this sorts of things everywhere. It's
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
yeah, it's a bit of a mix. I would say most Australians would be Protestant, and that was kind of there's kind of that vague Protestant attitude in Australia, but it's just not a big part of life here. Um, but for me personally, even as a kid, I was always open to the idea of the supernatural. I never believed in like
hmm,
the kind of atheist worldview. I just didn't think all this could have happened by accident. You know, you look at the world, consciousness, humans, relationships, stories, archetypes, all these emotions, all these amazing things that exist in the world. And it's like, you really want to tell me this is all by chance and it's all material? You know,
yeah,
that didn't make sense to me. So I never bought into that. And as a kid, I really liked horror movies, ghost stories, all these kinds of things. I found that sort of thing fascinating, because
yeah,
it made life exciting. You know, it was I always wanted there to be more than just what met the eye, and so I was always open to the idea of God, but never really pursued it very much until I was probably about 18, 19. I started reading a
hmm,
few books and things like this, and um, just because I'm such a inquisitive person, I always need to know, like, get to the bottom of things and know the answers. Just studied it for years and had ups and downs with it. Like no one's faith journey is a direct straight line. There's always moments of
absolutely, yeah,
doubt, confusion, hang ups on certain things. And so I certainly had that. And I was probably led astray for a while and got into some more stupid beliefs about a few like new age things.
yeah.
You know,
So
that
easy to get
yeah, the
sucked
guys
in.
like Will talk, it's very easy to be tricked by that. And I think I was for a
Hmm.
while. But ultimately, thankfully God led me back to him and I became a Catholic. And yeah, it's just been since I made the decision to become Catholic, I've just yeah, it's been a one-way street. I've absolutely loved it. I've thrown myself into it, and yeah, I know I'm a preachy person. Like I'm quite a adamant person that likes to share their views, and but I just want people to share in the gift that I've been given. So yeah, I just can't help myself in that regard.
No, absolutely. I totally understand that, man. And you know, for me, it's very recent, honestly. My starting to believe again, because I was raised a Catholic and I went through all of the things, all of the rites, stuff like that. You know that you need to do,
Hmm.
but only recently, and I noticed this as a shift, as we talked in the beginning, how our community has kind of died down and then starting to grow again. It's been growing in a different direction, which is more uh, God based. That's how I can put it. It's
Yeah.
very much so more bigger and more kind of for a bigger meaning, bigger purpose. It's not just posting about things, about hacks, about tips. It's about truly trying to raise the awareness of people for God, for bigger things. So, and kind of with that, all of that, it also clicked with me. People like you and Arthur definitely gave me a lot of inspiration in this manner. I do not know. I do not think you guys realize that everything that we do influences people, and it can influence each other, but like true influence. Maybe people never say it, maybe people never comment, maybe people never send you a message, but it's all consumed and it can all get stuck in your mind. And if you're posting something good, then the good will spread. So that's kind of what happened to me. I had some family things that I'll not talk about that kind of put me off faith, but I I had this belief before that, and you will maybe some relate to this a bit. But when you start in self-improvement, it's very easy to start thinking that you are capable of everything by yourself. You get into this mindset that okay, I got myself out of the rut. I did this, I did that. You do not now search for a bigger thing, bigger God.
Yeah.
You don't need those things because you're like, oh, I did this all by myself. And then you even start doing things out of spite, like, well, I do not need any like external help. I do not need any of that. I will do this by myself. But comes it goes well until it doesn't go well, pretty much.
Yeah.
There comes a point where it all breaks and you're left literally naked, and the systems that you did before do not work anymore. And you try, okay, I'm gonna start. No, it doesn't go that way again. And then people either go completely like not insane, but they lose any motivation, they lose any discipline, or they can start turning to God and realize that He was there all along, and that instead of trying to be this big guy, you start to humble yourself, you start to get down on your knees and say, I'm not in control. And the beautiful thing that happens afterwards is not only not only are you good again, but you're stronger than you ever could be. You're not this humble now. You're not just this guy that's just head down and praying. You actually have power of God that He wants you to have. That He wanted you to have all this time, but you were too stubborn to realize. And this when this realization happened to me, it was most eye-opening thing, because it all seemed like, oh my God, it's really that simple, kind of. It's simple in the sense that there's not too much thinking about it. It's difficult for sure. It's so difficult to stay in faith, but it is not complex, you know.
Mm.
And then I started reading the Bible. Then I started praying more. I experienced magical things with prayer. Like, I can say this, that prayer is real. Prayer is absolutely amazing, and stuff like that. And then I just kept going. And as you said, I had so many difficult periods where I was almost then not doing anything. I would lose faith. It kept testing me, kept testing me. But I kept trying to return to it, even though everything in my mind was telling me, why are you doing this? This is all, fake. Why are you trying to do this and that? Like, you're convincing yourself of this. But even though I ignored these voices and kept going. And with that time of trying, I started to realize a lot of things about the world. And those are the things that I actually want to talk to you about today, because I feel like you're someone that is, like you said, constantly preaching about Catholic stuff and about God. And I think you're a person that actually is, like you said, you're a curious guy. You actually go deep into these things, and you can provide good insight, because my thoughts are just my thoughts, and I'm sure that you can find something like to say, okay, yes, that's because it literally says that in the Bible. But for me, it's all like new. So I wanted to ask you about this first. So now that you heard a little bit about my story, so
Mhm.
so the thing about, we can add on to what you said about the new age. So the thing about new age and stuff like that, and and in general about thinking about the world. Obviously, if you're a smarter person, you will think about the world, how everything works, how everything was created. And some of the thoughts are, well, obviously, we are just, in three dimensions. We are just in this little world. There should be something more, right? There should be something that we are not able to reach. And thinking like this, you can very easily discard Christianity to just say it's a story of the earth. It's just a little story. There's something bigger.
Mhm.
And yeah, and first let me ask you: have you experienced something like this before? Like when you were just thinking about the world, like, oh, there must be something. It's not that simple.
Oh yeah, for sure. Like I said, when I was growing up, I was always sold that there was more than what just met the eye. There had to
Mm-hmm.
be a some kind of spiritual underpinning to things. And I'd been raised in a secular society, so a lot of people around me, people didn't really believe in God, but I noticed that a lot of them were big into well, not big into, but they kind of liked the other religions like Buddhism and things like that.
Yeah.
And it was like, oh, Buddhism's so amazing, oh, it's so spiritual and all this sort of stuff. But Christianity, that's no, we don't do that. Um, yeah, and a lot of people are very familiar with that. And I kind of didn't know what to think of it. Um, but I looked into Buddhism, I do Buddhist meditations and all these kinds of things, and I read some Buddhist texts and things, and like, they're quite nice. You feel good afterwards, but it ultimately felt like a bit of a cope for me because
Yeah.
Buddhism's the idea that like all life is suffering, and instead of uh, what Christianity tells you, which is where you use your suffering to grow in virtue and grow towards God. You learn the virtues through your sufferings. Buddhism just kind of tells you if you just mellow out and don't feel anything, you won't have to suffer. And it's like,
Mm.
but then
Yeah.
just like, what's the point in living? It doesn't make sense. Like, why are we on Earth if we're just supposed to shut our eyes and breathe through our nose for hours and hours and hours a day? Like, it just seems like it doesn't make sense why we'd be here. The Christian worldview made perfect sense to me, though. The more I learnt about it, the more I was interested in it. But at the same time, I still kind of thought that I could be my own God a little bit. And I wanted to do
Mm.
like Christianity, but also like learn about astrology or things like this, like
Yeah.
all that sort of thing. I thought I could do that. And you mentioned Arthur. He's another guy who's really started taking his faith very seriously in recent years. We had a podcast together and we look back on it now, we just laugh at the sort of dumb stuff we were saying.
Seriously.
It's so bad. No one go listen to it because we were saying stupid things. I got to tell him to get rid of it because someone will probably listen to it and still think that. And then we both like him and I both like in such a pretty much the same time, we both just clicked in our heads and we're like, oh wait, no, it's not us. We don't get to decide
Mm.
the rules. God decides the rules. And we follow what he
Yeah.
wants us to do. But we were made for him. Like St. Augustine has this really famous line, which is wonderful. He says, you made us for you, O Lord, and our heart is restless until it rests in you. And we've got to understand that God made us for him. So when we do things for him,
Yeah.
it inadvertently actually benefits us more than us doing stuff for ourselves. And once that
Absolutely. Yeah.
clicks, that's a hard leap of faith to make. But once you do it and you see what it's like, you really understand that serving God, the best thing you can do to benefit yourself is to serve God and do what He wants for you because His will is perfect. He doesn't make mistakes, right? And even if you can't see why He's putting you through some pain or some hardship, you will always understand that it will work out for the better for you.
Mm. Absolutely, man. And there's something like what you said that um, I feel like the world is not meant to be understood necessarily by us. And I feel like God gave us a blueprint, and because of His love towards us, He was like, literally, okay, you need to do this and that, and you will be more content, you will be saved. And I feel like this is done for reasons that we should not need to necessarily understand, because I think God wanted us to make it more simple, but so it's easier for us. Because this is what I want to say. Even though there truly might be something about everything, about the mentions of all of these crazy things that people talk about, that shouldn't matter to us, because it is not something that we can comprehend. And there are things in this world that are just like even rules. They're pretty much like the way it was designed. And the way this world was designed is that there is good and evil, there is God, there is the devil, and there is the constant battle. And God gave us a choice. We either go and follow His path, or we can go towards the other path. That's our choosing. That's the most beautiful thing. But the way I'm trying to put it is, the world really started to make sense to me when I realized that it truly is that. It can be that simple. It truly is that way, because this is the way our world was designed. That is our God. This is the world. Nothing else matters to us, because this is how the things are set up here. We can ponder about many things, but it's those like simple rules that are just operating in this world that we are living in, and that is the good, that is the evil, that is following the path. And this is kind of hard to put into words, but when I realized this, it was kind of a relief, because I am also a person who likes to think about these things. But then I realized, okay, that can exist. I do not care. But what I need to know is that God literally came here. he died for our sins. He told us, okay, if you want to live a good life, love thy neighbor. What is like don't cast rocks, if you're not, stuff like that. He gave us a really beautiful blueprint, but we humans, of course, think we are smarter and think there's always something like more and more. And even if there is, why care when literal God, the person that, not person, but the entity that created you, the everything, literally told you, He made the sun. He told you, okay, I love you. This is what you need to do. And it's so crazy, because it seems like a story, but it's not a story. Because you know how I know that it's not a story? Because I know the true evil exists, and I know that you get rewarded. You get not rewarded necessarily, but you get this gut feeling that you are on the right path, even though sometimes it's hard. And the third thing that I know is the correct thing is, when you dedicate yourself to to not sin as much, to be full of the God, you are getting even the worst. You're getting the most tested ever in your life. You're getting the urges, you're getting the attacks, you're getting all of these things, because you made a promise to God that you are going to do better. So that's how I know the evil doesn't want you to do that. So with these like simple things, everything started making sense to me.
Yeah, it's exactly right, especially that last bit there. Like, this is why, there are preachers who preach what's called the prosperity gospel, where they say, like, if you believe in Jesus, you'll get the raise, you'll get the big house, things like that. That's not how it works. Often,
Yeah.
you will suffer a lot more, but not always. I don't want to scare people off, but it's a good kind of suffering. It's a good kind of hardship.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, and it's done to test you and to make you grow, because everyone can love their neighbor when their neighbor loves them and when they're in a good mood, But can you love your neighbor when he's annoying you? Can you still love your wife when she's irritating you or doing this or that? Can you still be charitable even when you don't have quite as much money as you want to? All these kinds of things. Can you still be patient with someone even when you're frustrated? Because that's where the real virtue comes from. Can you perform these virtues even when the things are stacked against you? Because it's easy when everything's going well. When everything's going well, we can always be nice and friendly, But it's the ability to resist the temptations to do the wrong things. But you always come out of it feeling better and knowing it was the right thing to have done, even if there was some kind of personal cost attached at the time. And that's how you know you're on the right track, because like a lot of these people like really into things like manifestation and all that, they get
We'll get
the
into it
material
later.
things, but they're still miserable. You know,
Mm-hmm.
there are lots of people who are very rich and miserable, and that's their heart that wants to be aligned with God, telling them you're looking for happiness in the wrong places. Now, it's not a question of, no one's saying that material things are evil, but a disordered attachment to them above all else is not going to make you happy. And C.S. Lewis says, you know, the whole history of man can be summed up as men looking for things other than God to make them happy. And I would add to that, it can be summed up
That's great.
yeah, I would add that it can be summed up as men trying to find something other than God to make them happy and failing at it, because that's ultimately
Yeah.
what happens. That's why humility is such a virtue. Only when we're humble can we see God. When we're prideful, we're full of ourselves, we think we're the best. Like you said earlier on, you know, you get a few wins in your life, and then all of a sudden you think you can do everything, and you're never going to look at God when you think you can do everything. And so that's why he often brings people down, strikes them down a notch to, you know, bring them back down to earth and make them realize that, hey, we can't actually do everything for ourselves. We do need help, you know?
Yep, yep. And you know what? Something that I just popped in my mind is, I think, because I walk this line right now, what I'm writing, what I'm doing, I walk this line about, not about, but I'm in between self-improvement and in between, God and stuff like that. And I understand the perspective of people who maybe get turned off by these things, get scared off when talking about God. So I always try to strike a balance, because people can then more easily understand and then easily get into these things that I talk about. So I think we should maybe break some misconceptions about these things. For example, self-improvement and faith in God is very interconnected. That's what people don't realize. It's not either this or that. It's not either that you are completely humble, down to earth, or that you are like this improver and person that has indestructible mindset. It's all very similar. And for example, one thing that I can say is that there's no greater accountability, as they say, than God. There's no greater accountability. You can have friends, you can have your purpose, but when God is when God is at top, you are so much more accountable, because you know what you need to do and you know for what reason to do it. For example, it's funny example, but now that I'm preparing for a race, for running a 5K charity race, and one of the things that I say mentally to myself right now, before it would be like, I'm the best I can do this. For now, I say, if God suffered for me, I can suffer through this a bit, something like that. And this is so much stronger, like motivation than anything else. But this is just a small example. In anything, like when it comes to sinning, when it comes to urges, stuff like that, it's so much more powerful when you know that God loves you and God doesn't want you to do this. And especially when you know that this is the devil that is trying to bring you down, like, yeah, let him suffer, let me feel, When you understand this grand battle, you start realize that, oh my God, this is not just about me, But again, it is all interconnected, because we can talk about nofap, we can talk about, journaling, meditating, we can talk about all of these things, but everything is already present in our religion. Meditating, it is being in silence, maybe even repeating the prayers. Journaling, you can journal, of course, people, especially priests, journal, reading. We always try to study the scriptures, what else? Like, obviously, things like removing the vices, like nofap, the addictions. This is the core also about our faith, because we are trying to be, we're not trying to be like God, we're just trying to be serving to Him, because we know that is the good thing for us, This is something what I want to say. The reason why we serve God is obviously is because He knows that by serving Him, it will make us feel better and good. That's the most funniest thing. He doesn't need us, but he loves us, and He gave us the option to make us feel good. it's not this person that is feeding off of our prayers necessarily, you know. It is going into the good and evil thing, but it is not because we pray that God is like, yes, yes, my God. No, He wants us to do this because He knows that ultimately He created us to feel stronger and better when we do it, and it's simple as that. But yeah, what do you have to say about this, like the mix between improvement and faith? Because I feel like it's the same thing, but one is self-centered and one is centered about God, which is obviously much better because we are designed to have to have a higher meaning.
Yeah, you're exactly right. And look, you can improve a bit on your own. Like God does infuse natural graces and virtues into us that maybe we're not aware that we're consciously participating with Him, but we can do some
Mm.
things, by our own free will. We do rely on grace, whether we know it or not, to be virtuous, but it is possible to have some kind of degree of agency. But the ironic thing about like self-improvement is that, it's all about the self. It's all focused about you being strong, you controlling your mind, this and that. But the irony is you actually have to completely let go of yourself and trust that God will, let's say, improve you. Because if you have that humility, to not be caught constantly bogged down in vices, that's when you can actually ascend. Like if you want to be charitable, you can't be greedy, right? But it's tempting to be greedy.
Mhm.
We want to keep our own things. We don't necessarily want to give to others or help others. But it's only through that lack of greed and that humility we get before God that we love our neighbor, and then we kind of, feel a little less greedy because we love our neighbors ourselves, that then we can start to practice the virtue of charity. And so it's ironic that you're actually going to improve a lot more when you rely on God's graces than if you rely on yourself. That's the ironic thing. Like you read the lives of the saints, these were amazing people. These people had patience like you wouldn't believe, humility like
Mhm.
you wouldn't believe, courage, fortitude like you wouldn't believe. They were the strongest, most disciplined people, but they went into self-improvement. There was no self-improvement acts. It was all just putting themselves in the hand of God and saying, do what is best for me, Lord. Like, and I'll just keep saying yes to you. It's a very
Yeah, yeah,
simple concept, but it's very hard to do. It's difficult to do, but it's simple. You just have to say yes to God and cooperate with His graces, and there'll be more benefits for you than you would ever get by just relying
yeah.
on hacks.
The thing that I talk about with my followers is that even just dedicating yourself to like a bigger thing, like maybe building a career and stuff like that, will automatically improve you without trying to improve. You need to be this disciplined person. So the way I in general start to view self-improvement nowadays is it's just the way you live, the way your mindset is working, because every habit pretty much turns into a mindset thing, and you learn to operate your mind. Obviously, if you can be strong without constantly doing your routines, then that means you actually change. You're not reliant on those things that you do, and that's just like about career. But when you take it to the next level, to God, then like you said, it's even much more. You're much more stronger. You're much more better, and I'm constantly now thinking about how people that are not believing will say about this. They will say about this, but this is all just in our head, stuff like that. We are just imagining things, but we are telling you from our own experiences that I was like that. Like I was so much believing in myself, and I constantly kept saying to people, I do not need anything. I built everything on my own, and then sooner or later it all comes crashing down. So honestly, for you listening to this, like from my heart, I'm telling you, try to read a bit about these things and see what happens when you just say, okay, I'm not in control. I'm not in control. For a moment, say I'm not in control, and let God carry you. When you finally remove that, like a arrow from your heart, pretty much, how much easier can you breathe afterwards? How beautiful that feeling is, because you don't even realize how much of a burden you're carrying, and you think that it's all about you. You know? But something that I want to add on to this, and it's interesting that you said, like in the beginning of your talk, you said about something that God does instill virtues in us that we might not be aware that it's from Him. But this is something that I was struggling with a lot before, like recently, and that is the balance between having the strong mindset and self-belief and being humble, being, believing that everything is from God. I was like, how can I, because for example, for me, a lot of my success, be it in training, be it in the things that I do, come from mindset. Like my mindset is my strongest weapon. Like I have so much belief that I'm not gonna fail or that I'm gonna do something, that it's almost ignorance.
Yeah.
And it got me to a lot of things. And then I was like, but how can I be like this and surrender myself to God? This was a big dilemma. And I realized that, like you said, God did this for me already. He gave me the option to have this mindset. But it's just the matter of the direction that I'm taking it. Do I know that it is from God? And then I am humble for it, I'm grateful for it, I appreciate it? Or I think, oh, this is all me, I am the one who has this mindset. This was the biggest shift for me, because I just couldn't for a moment push myself hard in anything that I was doing, because I was like, I'm being too egocentrical. It was very difficult at first to find this balance, and especially, like, a lot of people also say that they become a bit of a different person when they convert, because they're like more calm, they cannot find that intensity. But then I realized that, okay, if you follow the word of God, if you try to not indulge in sin, and then you use the gifts that God gave you, then you become this ultimate being, because you combine the physical, you combine the mental, you combine your spirit into this great thing, So this is again going towards the self-improvement and the God and everything, that it's all interconnected. It's not something that you can separate.
Yeah, and so this is the thing. Like, I think I probably had similar thoughts to you once upon a time, where you do accomplish things and you go, well, I'm accomplishing this. Where's God in this? But you were right in noticing, like, so you, for example, like you said, you have a really strong will and you're determined to make things happen, and you believe in yourself, you believe you can do them, and then you accomplish them. But what is that virtue there? That's the virtue of fortitude. So the determination. And that's a virtue that can be developed through the grace of God, but that's one of the four cardinal virtues. And now some people are lucky and they get certain virtues come to them more easily, but these are gifts from God. So you, for example, might have been gifted a greater fortitude than most. Fortitude might come more easily to you than most people, right? And the same way it could work the other way as well. You might struggle with a particular vice more than some people. Like, some people have a lot of they really struggle fasting, for example. They love to be gluttonous, they love to be greedy. Some people can fast quite easily, and all these things. So we have different gifts, and it reminds me a bit of I just got it up while you were saying that King Saint Louis IX, who was king of France in I think the 13th century, a great Catholic monarch and a saint. And he said he wrote a letter to his son, which you can read online. But there's this one passage which is quite well known. He says, "If our Lord sends you any prosperity, either health of body or other things, that you ought to thank Him humbly for it, and you ought to be careful that you are not worse for it, either through pride or anything else. For it is a very great sin to fight against our Lord with His gifts." So he's saying there, like, God will grace you with certain gifts. But that's not you. Don't be prideful thinking you earned that. You didn't earn that, all right? You be grateful for it. You don't fight against him, okay? Like, we thank him for the prosperity he gives us. And that's a key distinction I think a lot of people don't understand. But it's an important one to understand, because even when you think God's not doing the work in your life, he is still the one doing the work.
Exactly. And
You are the one who decides to accept this, to be aware of this, or just to ignore it and go the other way, because God never wants you to fail, necessarily. He does not like, okay, you are not using my kiss, then I'm going to, he's like, it's your free will, man. It's like, it's your choice, you will be feel better and stronger if you decide to, you to see this and understand this. It's rare that, it really happens when God it's rare that happen. Let me put it like this: it's not common for God to be like, I will strike you down because you like this and that. He doesn't do this because he wants you to have the free will. He wants you to come to him naturally, not by his doing, because it would defeat the whole purpose of our faith.
Yes.
And what I wanted to say is, it's completely got off my mind, but let's put it like this. So I wanted to talk also about something that is in line with this, and that is about, we mentioned before, it is about manifestation and things like that. So it's a very interesting thing, because manifestation, law of attraction, it works.
Why it works?
Well, this is what I think. You can get material things, and you can manifest them, or even success. You can manifest this, but notice how everything that you manifest is exactly what you want. It is not something that God has put a path to you to follow, or something that He, called you upon. No, this is something that you want. So it comes from the self. And not only that, but it is an easier path because it completely removes the talk about commitment, about discipline, about being humble, about being, about even suffering. It removes that all. It's all about you talking it into existence and attracting it. And you know what I realized? Well, it is the devil gifting you. It is the devil fooling you. It is the biggest foolery that is happening right now in the world with this new age thing.
Yep.
You think you found the perfect answer, that you are the God, that we are all God, And then only after a while, when it all, crumbles down, you're like, oh my God, it's too late even for some people, I'll give one example. A lot of these artists, modern artists, they speak a lot about manifestation and stuff like that, And what's interesting, after a few years, unfortunately, most of them end up either dead, or they turn into a Satanist, or they turn into a gay or something like that. It is a very interesting phenomenon that I observed. Most those that talk about these things, they do get success, but they are soulless. They are, dead in the eyes, or they're literally passed away, unfortunately. So it's incredible. It's literally the story that you hear about all the time, like getting lured in, but now it's actually happening, and it can be observed how this lie can fool people, how can this shining, gold can blind them.
Yeah, it's certainly so. Satan is the prince of this world, right? He only has the dominion God lets him have dominion, the amount of dominion that God grants him, but he has a lot of power in this world, and he even tempts Jesus in the gospel with power. And so ultimately, what does Satan want out of somebody? He wants their soul. He wants them with him in hell, suffering for all eternity. So there's a quite a well-known saying that you can't make hell look attractive, because it's pain that exists beyond anything in this world, and it's for all eternity. You can't make that look good. You can't make anyone want to go there. So all you can do is make the path to hell look attractive. And so Satan and his minions, they do have power in this world. They can make things happen for you. And so what Satan wants is you to come to him, and he'll bribe you with anything. Oh, you can manifest money through me. You can manifest fame through me. You can hurt your enemies through me. Anything you want, I can give you, because ultimately he doesn't care. What's money to Satan? It doesn't exist. It's just some made up thing humans came up with, Yeah, sure, you can have money. I don't care, but I want your soul. That's all I want, And I'll keep giving you everything you think you want. You just keep coming to me, Don't worry about God. Look at all these Christians. Look at these nuns, they live lives of poverty. They're not allowed to have sex, all these things. Like, oh, how miserable. That's so miserable. Like,
Yeah,
come to
yeah.
me. You can have money, fame, girls, everything over here. But then at the end of your life, your soul, when you're on your judgment, God said, well, you didn't come to me. You chose Satan over me. Like, you have chosen to go to hell and to be separate from me. And so that's where the poor souls that fall for this end up for all eternity. And it
Mm.
sounds brutal,
Yep.
and it is brutal. Uh, this isn't, we're not playing around here. Like, this is serious. But Satan just, you know how they're saying misery loves company? Miserable people want
Mm.
everyone to be just as miserable as them. Satan is the epitome of that. I want everyone down here suffering with me like I suffer. Um, and I'm gonna tempt them any which way I can. And so that's really what the game is. And you can be lucky enough to achieve earthly success while still um firmly believing in God. You're not signing yourself up for
Mm-hmm.
a life of poverty and hardship, but there will be some forms of hardship because without it we don't grow. And all your sufferings will be for the better. If you ever meet nuns, monks, people have consecrated themselves to God and lived a religious life, they're the happiest people in the world. Like, you never see them, they don't stop smiling. They're always
Mm-hmm.
happy to see you, especially if you develop a bit of a relationship with a couple of them. They're happy to see you. They're such like just lovely, happy. You can feel their like
Absolutely,
you know
yeah.
how the new age people they talk about like vibrations and stuff and energy and
Mm.
things. It's like you get so much stronger energy from these people than the girls who love
Yeah.
their crystals. Like, which is ironic.
And I was put.
Put off by that before, I was put off by that. I was like, these guys are crazy, they're always, smiling, calm. Like, I thought they were like literally like brainwashed,
But
but
Mm.
they're
they're
actually experiencing the most bliss, like happiness that one can experience.
Yeah.
So it's definitely right.
Yeah, and that's the ironic thing as well. They're happier than the people that are made rich by, doing deals with the devil, so to speak. Um, and what's a few decades of prosperity and fame for an eternity in hell? These things
Mm.
just aren't worth it. We know the right decision. Don't be tempted by the temporal because it's
Yeah.
temporary.
And when you think about like this, if in life you want to be, I guess, happier, you could say, or maybe content, that doesn't mean that there is a path to that necessarily. What you think now will make you happy doesn't necessarily need to be true, because if you are happy, for example, if like you said, you can be lucky to have great things, but if you are happy and you don't have great things, then do the great things even matter then? They do not. So we need to detach ourselves from this image of what makes a person happy or successful in life.
And
Because
this is the
God already.
thing.
Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt, but all these money and possessions, the only reason we want those is because we think they'll make us happy. And they might.
Mm-hmm.
So we've got the same end goal here. We just want to be happy.
Yep.
But you don't necessarily need those things to be happy. And a lot of the time the happiest people are the ones without that.
I agree absolutely. And yes, I just remembered what I actually want to say. It obviously goes into this conversation
As
as well.
well.
You talked about how we are also gifted, or not gifted, but given problems by God.
I
I
Mhm.
believe.
believe this to be true, and He gave us these problems in order for us to become the person that He designed us to be, pretty much. For example, if for someone listening to this, and I can definitely read this, have some vice that is a big problem for you, harder than most people, it seems like.
Mhm.
Instead of constantly dreading it and resisting it, I feel like this has been also a gift from God to teach you a lesson that you need in order to go forward in life. Like, for example, this is not a vice for me, but for example, something that for me, it was the scars that I have all over my body.
Mhm.
For example, instead of like blaming God and life for making me this way, I feel like He on purpose gave me this because He knew this is what I was going to do later on. I was going to turn it something positive and try to spread this message. And the same thing is with my other things that I'm struggling with mentally. I feel like if I didn't have them, then it would be kind of too easy, you know
What
what
I
I
mean?
mean?
Like it would
Yeah.
be too.
To like, I wouldn't suffer for the good reasons. I would just be like, yeah, do this, do that. But I feel like I can gain a lot of strength from fighting this evil, you know.
Mm.
And also to add on what you said before, like about priests being the happy and stuff like that. Even though they are happy like that, I feel like they experience the most attacks by the devil because they are the most pure.
Yeah. Yeah.
And but when you look at it like that, it's actually empowering because it's not that you are now fighting just the like the physical or mental problems. You're fighting the devil,
And
and
that
that is actually for me it's like encouraging. I know that I am on the good side, and I know that I want to beat him, and I know, for example, but just by us saying these things, we might have the more difficulties, because obviously this is real. Everything is real, but okay, because we believe in God and we believe in good, and we know that it's the right path. So honestly, yeah, what I was just saying, understanding all of these things makes life better. It's simple as that, and that's what my message was always about. Trying to better people, trying to empower them. So this is why this podcast is even being made. I want people to
would be
be better.
better.
Yeah. Yeah. And so with the affliction thing, like everyone has a story of something
Yep.
that was really hard, something that broke them down, something that's, you know, made them grow up and turn from a boy into a man, you know. And if you don't have that story yet, you probably will one day. But these things are always for our own benefit. Because if we didn't have them, we would just become increasingly lazy and increasingly soft. Like you talk about your struggle with eczema or acne or whatever. But that taught you so much about health, you know. Think of the benefits of health you're going to have for your life because you learned so much through that struggle, you know. A lot of these, so you understand that these things are always for our benefit. And like, you know, for example, there's a lot of evil in the world right now, and people say, "Oh, well, why would a good God allow this evil?" And it's like, well, we stop listening to him, and then the world gets worse, and then the world gets worse, and then we realize, oh, whoops, we should have been listening to him this whole time. So, you know, guys like you and me who didn't take our faith seriously enough, we see the evil in the world, we see the problems in the world, and we go, oh no, we need to start taking our faith seriously. You know, back when they didn't have these problems was when they were listening to God.
Yeah.
You know, people
And
don't
it's
talk.
honestly a
A
bit.
bit scary, right? It's honestly a bit scary how the world has fallen down. Honestly, we try not to talk about this, and we comment on these things. But when you look at it objectively, it's I think it has never been worse in terms of godlessness. Like
Yeah,
we being witness. It's actually horrible, and you don't realize how everything is actually rooting from God. Like, or from devil actually in this case. How everything is rooted from that, and how he kind of I would never say he took control, but he is the one that's winning right now, unfortunately. That's why we are talking about this and trying, to hope to make just lives, make people happier. That's at the end of the day true.
yeah. So we can talk about the devil. I know maybe you didn't mean to phrase it like this, but the devil is never winning against God because the
Yeah.
devil only has the power that God allows him to have in any one moment. God, if he wanted to, could snap his fingers. The devil could be completely constrained right
Yeah, yeah,
now,
yeah.
and we could have an amazing society tomorrow, right? But he's not going to do that. He allows the bad things to happen to teach us a lesson, to wake us up, right? And we have warnings about this. You know, in the Catholic Church, we believe in private revelation. We don't believe all private revelation. Many of them are false. People are just making things up. But there are some that are approved by the church. There are four apparitions of Mary that have been approved by the church. And they're always warning, saying, you know, if you keep up with this evil, things are going to get worse. There was a really famous one called Our Lady of Fatima, uh, which happened in 1917. It was when Our Lady Mary appeared to these peasant children in Portugal and told them of the evils of the world to come if man didn't turn back to God. And, you know, we can get into that later or whatever if you want, but ultimately the people didn't really heed the warning. And then World War I happened, World War II, all these awful things happened, and we had this godless century. But you know what? The reason God allows that is because people like me and you now come back to the faith. We look at things, the world's getting worse, the world's getting, more and more evil, more and more horrible. We go, well, how do we get out of this? Oh, we have to turn back to God. And you see this story over and over again in the Old Testament, where the Israelites were, when things were tough, they leaned on God. They went to God. They prayed. They sacrificed for Him. They were righteous, and He rewarded them. Right? He rewarded them. Yeah, you've done the right thing. Now, obviously, we know that when you follow me, you get the blessings and the benefits that you earn. Yeah, He graces us with them. And then they get prosperous, they get rich, they get comfortable, and then they go, oh, we don't need God. And they stop praying, and they start sinning, and they start fornicating, all these things. And then God goes, all right, I'm going to have to make you turn back to me some way. And He makes things tough again. And, maybe the Assyrians come from the north to invade, or all these kinds of things, all these bad things happen. And people realize again, oh, this happened because we turned away from God. And humans are just always in that cycle. It's always, it's the hard time, that cliche, hard times create strong men, all that. It's that cycle, right? And so the chastisement that we're going through right now, it sucks, and it's easy to get black-pilled and wish you were living in a better time, or, oh, why is it every day, there's some horrible thing happening, this and that. Ugly buildings that get built everywhere. It's ugly art. This just all this sort of thing. But it's like this is necessary, and you can play your part in ending that by being righteous, by coming back to God, by doing what He wants you to do. Going to confession, going to mass, saying your prayers, practicing virtue, practicing charity, all these things. This is how we get out of this mess. And so it's empowering in a sense.
That's I agree. I actually agree as well. Like it is. I guess especially for us men, it's kind of, it gives us more of purpose, to keep fighting. And what you said, I just want to repeat it again for the audience, is that you should pray even harder and stronger, better when you are actually feeling good. You should be even more thankful for when the times are good, and not just rely on God like some call, for like, oh, I'm bad again, help me out,
Yeah.
It is something that must be maintained all of the time and appreciated for. Like, if you're healthy today, if your family is healthy, if you are stable financially, if you are, not injured, stuff like that, don't stop thanking God. Literally, don't stop. It is the most wonderful thing.
For you, so
Thanksgiving is so important.
man.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So I wanted to, because I think, although we could talk for hours, I unfortunately don't have that much time. So I just wanted to ask you about this for our followers, for our viewers. What are some things, for example, someone that is not necessarily religious, stuff like that, what are some things that they should first start doing? Like, how to get introduced into all of these things?
Well, so I say this: if you have trouble believing, that's common. Most people, they have been told their whole life these things are fake, blah blah blah. Yeah, sure, you might have some trouble believing, and that's okay. First thing you got to do is understand this: we have two sides of our brain, the left and the right side. And I think I might get this the wrong way around, but I think the left side is the rational side of the brain, the problem solving, the logical side of the brain. And the right side is the emotional side of the brain. Now, what people often do when they try to prove to themselves God exists is they only use one method, one side of the brain. Now, they'll read a book on maybe that talks about the historicity of Jesus, how He rose from the dead, all the proofs that this happened, all the historical accounts that say it happened, and they'll go, wow, yeah, it seems that is true, but they still struggle to believe it. Why? Because the emotional side of their brain is still attached to not wanting to believe, and it hasn't been fed. Some people, they pray, they like to feel this love from God, but deep down they think, oh, well, it could be anything. It could be the universe. It could be all this other stuff. And they just attach to the emotional side, but the logical side isn't convinced. You got to understand that you need to satisfy both sides of your brain. So I would read a book on that proves the faith. This is called apologetics. So someone uh, makes a case for why the faith is true, why God is real, why Christianity is the real faith. These kinds of things, and books like that could be The Case for Jesus by Brant Petrie, The Case for Christ by Lee Strobel. There are lots of books like that. A lot of The Case for, well, I think it's called The Case for Catholicism or Why We're Catholic by Trent Horn. These people are really good. You can look up debates with William Lane Craig on YouTube, and these provide all like the logical, rational reasons. But then you have to turn to prayer as well, and you have to, if you're not a believer, you probably don't love God, but you got to, say to him, let me love you, help me to love you,
Mm.
help me to grow closer to you, and he will answer your prayer. Jesus says, knock and it shall be opened, ask and you shall receive. If you ask for the gift of faith,
Yes.
it'll be given to you. God's never going to reject you asking to come closer to him. So we'll do that. Pray, learn some devotions, go in the Catholic churches, we have the Eucharist, which is the real presence of God. And when you walk into a Catholic church, you are surrounded with the real presence of God. And sit there and pray and meditate and talk to God, and things will become more clear. You might think, oh, I'm talking to myself or whatever, but just stick with it, quiet your mind, let him speak to you. Learn the basic prayers, the Our Father prayer, the Hail Mary prayer, these kinds of things. And then when you feel comfortable to go to a priest, a Catholic priest, and talk to them about, being baptized or confirmed, whatever you might need to do, and they'll be able to walk you through it. Look for a good parish that suits you. There's nothing wrong with wanting a beautiful church over a modern ugly one. Go to the old beautiful one if that's what you prefer. That's these things are normal. Often the Latin Mass churches are, I would say, a bit better in that regard.
Yeah.
But yeah, you've got to just take it one step at a time. Pray and learn, and you'll have that reinforcing both aspects of your brain. Yeah.
Nice, beautiful, beautiful. I mean, I say just I agree because I'm also still kind of in the beginning steps, And what I can say to people is that what we said before is that it is definitely a struggle, and it is definitely, you will have many thoughts, but you just have to keep going. You just have to keep being firm and do your best. And also, what I want to say is that it is a pride thing, it's an ego thing. But when you are able to say that you believe, when you're able to say that, like, okay, this is actually this is the truth, things will start revealing to you. It's simple as that. When you're able to defeat your own self, pretty much. Okay, Nick. So I want to just end with this. Maybe it's a bit of a difficult question to answer, but for people listening, what is just the message, like in a few sentences, that you're trying to put out for people now, like the final kind of words?
Nothing will get better until you turn to God.
Nice.
That's all I can say.
Well, beautiful, beautiful. Anyways, man, let people know where they can find you.
Yeah, so I'm
and what you have going on. You can even talk a bit about the press and everything else.
Yeah. So I'm at Zenoviel on Instagram, and I'm working. I post there a bit. I'm always up and down with my posting, but at the moment I'm really working on caroluspress.com. That's CARLOUS. Hang on, did I spell that wrong? I'm spelling my own website wrong. CAROLUS press.com. That's a website that I'm making with the Solar Saxon Andrew. And we've had different contributors writing and doing podcasts for us that are in this sphere. So Nature Chad's been on a podcast, and we'll get more from him, as well as other creators you probably know, like Greater Myth, I Candidus, Blood and Rain, Letters from the Ruins, these sorts of people, and some smaller creators as well, like Valeria, a great artist,
Mm.
and people like that, Principality of Spirit. I might be, maybe I'm forgetting someone. But yeah, there's gonna be a lot more of that. And this is like we talked about right at the beginning of the podcast where we were saying how like the sphere, the initial energy kind of died off, but now it's going in another direction, a healthier direction. And we want Carolus Press to help be a hub for that as well. You know, got writers like Metabro on there as well. And so we're putting all the best thought from the sphere on that website as well. We'll be doing courses, podcasts. We did live streams at book clubs. You know, we did a writing workshop the other day. Yeah, and we've gotten good feedback so far. It's still in very early days. It's only about 5 weeks old. There's a lot of things we want to do and add to it when we have the time and money, and so we're working pretty hard on that right now. So yeah, head on over to
Nice.
caroluspress.com and yeah.
Yeah, man. You say that you spelled it wrong. For the half of the podcast, which what I did for you was I was saying carousel press.
Carousel, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, my mistake was bigger.
Yeah,
Yeah,
there's a
man.
yeah.
So if yeah, so yeah, at Zenoviel, follow him on Instagram. Check out his links as well. I'll put everything in the description. And yeah, man, thank you very much for doing this. It was actually an incredible conversation. It exceeded my expectations, and it was really nice to finally talk to you. You were you were like I said, you exceeded my expectations. Amazing conversation, eye-opening conversation for me, and I'm sure that the audience will agree as well. So thank you very much for coming on, and I'm sure that we'll do it once again.
Yeah, thank you so much for hosting. I enjoyed that as well. It's really nice just being able to talk about these things and I think move the sphere in a positive direction. And one last thing I just want to say real quick, if anyone listening is looking to come to the faith, feel free to just DM me and I'll help you out.
Mm,
I'm open to those. So if you don't feel like you can't reach out, definitely do that. I'll always reply.
of course, of course. Well, thank you, man, and much love.
Much love, Nature Chat. Thank you.